And he, of course, he brought up auditing today. And he used it the way he used it and got in deep. He did, I think, a virtual type of demo kit, which was interesting because it led me to the first fall as a demo kit and how Allah, the way Allah has rigged this thing is it has to be a lack of faith that we fail this test. That's it. It is so very well put together. We can actually go into the fall and the first and prepare for what's to come, from what I can see and how he discussed it. And interestingly enough, he went into engrams. And of course, we discovered this some time back. And the minister said it also, that this is the exercising of demons. So these demons within these four devils that we have to present in the darkness that we are in right now. And I think that is the urgency in the lecture. I believe, and it's just Sister Angela speaking, that I don't know if we have caught up to present time yet in regards to the 93 years that this world has been exposed to the teachings of Almighty God, Allah himself, through the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. Us in particular in the Nation of Islam, this Garden of Gethsemane is the second demo kit that I wanted to get into, inshallah, where the disciples fall asleep twice. The first fall and the second fall is both happening in the garden. And in the garden, Jesus, he goes a little further. He said that you couldn't, first time he said that they fell asleep, and then he used the word rest in the second time. So I thought that was interesting, and also a way to calculate present time in regards to us and being able, and I had to include this, national putting us on alert right now. Because I don't know about anybody else. There's two things going on. It's a very peculiar feeling in the air right now. I don't know where you at in this country or on this planet, but it's there. Two, I am straight wiring and auditing. If I allowed to, it would be 24/7. And this is while the man of God is still in our presence. So there is something very heavy and weighty we're on the verge of, and I can just feel it. So I think those demo kits would be helpful to prepare for when we don't have anything but what's inside of us to sustain us.
When you say national putting us on alert, can you go in a little more detail about that?
We had a national hookup with the ACs, and everybody's being flooded and bombarded. And I'm sure that they're having their meetings with the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, because it's coming from different ways. So it's coming from national auditing, it's coming from the National MGT office, it's coming from when Brother Ishmael was just here. Everybody is talking about this event. So in the auditing point of view, we're being put on alert because, one, we have to be in a place that we can help others. So we got to work on ourselves first. That's the first thing they told us to do. Find where you weak at, find where the pain at, resolve it, make peace with it, take it to Allah, whatever we have to do, because we're going to be overwhelmed, first of all, with believers. Because when the dragon strikes, his tail strikes, he's going to take out a third of them stars. So they're telling us to be on alert for that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's something that we've been speaking about for a while now.
Absolutely.
That the minister has told us time and time again not to make an idol out of him. Mm-hmm. And some of us may have made the mistake of doing that, and that when the minister is no longer amongst us, it might be made to appear as though he has died. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say I know the detail, because I don't, the details
Right.
of how this is going to take place. But Brother Salam was present at the time that the messenger passed. So,
Mm-hmm.
Brother Salam has some good information with regards to what took place at that time period. And that same thing might take place in this time period. And even though the minister has told us time and time again that he's going to receive his crown, that he is not going to, the enemy is not going to get to him. If it's
Right.
made to appear as such, then there are many of us that may go through the same trial and may fall back into disbelief because it might be made to appear as though the minister has passed.
Yes, sir.
And that's going to throw a lot of individuals into restimulation and dramatization. So those of us that have the tech, I pray a lot that we remain steadfast and be the mercy by Allah's grace for the believers, as far as within the nation as well as without, that can help to maintain the sanity of those around us during this 3-year period.
Yes,
That we have to go through.
Yes, sir.
Because we have no idea what's in store for us. So a lot of us would say, "Well, I'm gonna get through it." None of us can say that,
Right.
because we have no idea.
Yes,
And Brother Lukman, including I was in a conversation and including the fact that they're gonna come and collect our literatures and just like they did the slaves, every piece of light without or outside of ourselves will be confiscated because the enemy thinks that he can neutralize the head if he disconnects us from the literature. So that's another thing I think we all are being put on in our classes, in the MGT class, in the FOI class. We are going back to basics. We're going back to memorization right now. Because, just the gravity, because some of us are still resting and sleeping. And so we don't know how close. Some of us don't think that we will see it in this lifetime. And we at the door. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if the brother Salam, if it's okay with you, brother, because I have these conversations. I talked to some sisters from the first, and they walk me through their perception of what they saw at the so-called funeral or janazah of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the tone in the room, and what they focused on the brothers in particular, because she said it was full of sisters inside, and the brothers was outside, and it's their perception. So I would love to hear his version or his perception of what happened.
Yes, I thank you, sis.
Praise be to Allah.
And I'm honored to share just a few words in regards to my experience back then in 1975. But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad had said to a few believers about himself that if you see a body, don't think it's me. And at the funeral of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, there was a body in a coffin. The Honorable Minister Lord Farrakhan went to see it. He said it looked like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but he looked at it like he was 20 years younger. And one of the sons of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked at the face of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and seen a mole that was on the right side of the face of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a mole on the left side. And I remember as a young man, I was 22 years old. 3 years before he departed, I had a dream that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was in a coffin on Lenox Avenue between 115th Street and 116th Street. I seen a line of people going towards a coffin. I got in line. When I got to the coffin, I looked in the coffin. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was laying in the coffin, but he was alive. And in my mind, I was talking to him, not in words, but in my mind, I'm saying, what are you doing there? And people behind me were saying, keep it moving, keep it moving. I walked away. That day is so vivid in my mind, I can talk about it as if it would happen yesterday. It was on February the 22nd. My mother and my sister was giving me a party. Back then, though I believed in the teacher Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I was caught out in the world. I was still out there smoking, getting high, partying. But while at my party that evening, we were smoking. I was smoking with my friends. We were drinking. I couldn't get high because I kept thinking about that dream I had about Elijah Muhammad early that day. My friends were partying, but in the center of my mind, I was saying, man, Elijah Muhammad, he may pass away. And 3 days later, they said he passed away. Years would go by. I would share that dream with many people. But confirmation of my dream came to fruition when Mother Tanetta Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with her, came out with a book called Coming Forth by Night. And in that book on page 82, she had a similar dream on when she said she seen Elijah Muhammad in a coffin in a church. So that gave verification to me that Elijah Muhammad, the Most High Elijah Muhammad, is not physically dead, even though many people seen a physical body. Many people are saying around the minister is telling that to believers around them now. If you see a body, don't believe it's me. And I'm here to say that we are the people of God. God can do miraculous things with us. He can give the appearance that you are physically dead, but you're not really dead. We got that in the Holy Quran with the Messiah. They said they killed the Messiah, but they killed him not. So we just got to bear and hold faith, have our faith intact, because we're about to come into a period that may be similar to when Honorable Elijah Muhammad departed from us. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brother Salam. Sister Shayla, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm late.
Alaikum salam. I enjoyed that video.
Allahu Akbar.
And I watched the video and I was studying today and it brought me to the Fall of America, chapter 51. If you read that, I don't know if you got the message, but if you read that first paragraph, it's right in line with, does anyone have the Fall of America handy?
No, I don't have mine handy.
Yes, sir, I do.
Can you go to chapter 51? I think it's called Hearts Failing Them, colon, fear. Just right to the first paragraph. It's page 221, I think it is.
You said chapter 51, correct?
I believe it's 51.
All right. Okay. Title is Men's Hearts Failing Fear. How true the prophecy of Jesus, Luke 21 through chapter 21, verses 25 and 26, concerning the present time. That's how the sentence reads.
Mm-hmm.
We bear witness that the sea and waves are roaring, and that fear is now covering the nations, as shown by the unusual heart failure that is now occurring among men. These are signs of the end of the present world.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's right in sync with that video. Would you say, Sister Shayla?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, here's an interesting thought. If you look at the problem book, and if you look at question number 1, the uncle of W.D. Farad, his heart beat 78 beats per minute. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
right.
Okay. Now, if you look at the fact that his heart beat 78 beats per minute, and then you look at the fact that it's problem number one. Brother Wadud, you got your Holy Quran handy?
No, sir, I don't have that.
Anyone have the Holy Quran handy?
I can get it. Give me a second.
Yes, sir. And then in the Bible, I was stuck at my desk.
Frank has it.
You got it, Brother Frank?
Yes, sir.
Okay. His heart beats 78 beats per minute, and that's in problem number one. So the way I remember it, if you take that one and you add it to 78, you get 79. So if you go to Surah 79 and you read verse 7 and 8.
Hold on, let me get my glass.
Good point. I like that.
He has to get his glasses.
Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam.
You better believe it.
Say that again.
It's gonna be Surah 79,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's gonna be verses number 7 and verses number 8. There's that 78 again.
Oh, wow.
It say the consequence will follow it. Hearts that day will palpitate.
Pallitate.
Yeah, palpitate.
So the heart failure, based on what it says in A Fall of America, that's one of the signs. And then when you look around, just a couple of days ago in New Jersey, a little boy was playing football and just dropped dead on the field.
Mm-mm-mm.
Mhm.
And that was part of that video, Sister Shayla. People just dropping dead for what they feel is no reason. And then when I did, I'm trying to think where the video came from. Someone sent me a video. I believe someone sent me a video, and it showed how these in the embalmers across the country, they're finding when they're embalming these individuals that have suddenly just died for no apparent reason at all.
They're finding these clots. Yes.
Say again?
They're finding these clots, right?
They're finding these clots
Blood
that
clot.
that are in their cardiovascular system. And one thing I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're saying one thing that all these individuals had in common was they had taken the vaccine.
Correct. Correct.
And they had these blood clots that are showing up in the carotid arteries. And these individuals have just died for no apparent reason, but you don't see anything about it in the news. They keep it real quiet.
That's true.
So it just, the Most High Elijah Muhammad already has it in Fall of America that right there is a sign that, we're in it. This is it right here.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Brother Frank, Sister Barbara.
Yes, sir. Those blood clots, I remember, were like in a chain, though. They wasn't just individual blood clot. They were connected like a chain. The whole
Yes, sir.
feel that with it.
Mhm.
The whole vein.
The move was not a movie, like a documentary. It's called
Yes, it was a documentary.
Died Suddenly, and that's one of the things they ask us to watch in the nation.
Mhm.
It's called Died Suddenly.
I'm trying to think, who sent me that video? Who sent me that link? Someone sent it to me and I watched it. It's almost like they said they're finding something that's almost like plastic.
Yes, sir.
It's almost like plastic that's showing up in their arteries.
Right. Yes, sir.
Mhm. All right.
They also saying that those who took the vaccines, they should take a D-dimmer test to see if they have the development of blood clots in the lower leg and lower part of the legs. It's D like in David, dimmer, D-I-M-M-E-R. That's a test you can take to see if you have the development of blood clots developing in your body. Go to the doctor and ask for that test.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Brother Lukeman, may I ask an unrelated question?
Of course.
You are going to be in that tournament, right? The
As,
chess.
as, If I'm blessed to get there, yes, ma'am. I've already signed up for the tournament.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'll be cheering for you, brother.
Praise be to Allah. I plan on being in that tournament.
Okay.
And I pray Allah that this year will be the year I get this first book written as well.
I'm with you, brother.
You know, I gotta get this book, I gotta get this chess book written. So I just want to go back real quickly to something Sister Angela said, and then we'll go to Sister Patricia. With regards to the destruction of the books, Sister Angela, the movie Fahrenheit 451 came to mind when you as you were speaking.
Isn't that about a fire?
Actually, it's about the fire
It's
department.
Michael Moore, right? Or
But
something
in
like
the
it's the Michael Moore movie, right?
I don't know if it's I don't know.
Just tell me what it's about. What's it about?
Okay, it's a future. It's in a future where the job of the fire department is to destroy the books. They don't want any written books.
Oh yeah.
So in order to maintain the books, there was individuals that actually had to memorize the books. So the people became the libraries. And what they did was they tried to round up the people that had memorized the books.
Wow, the Book of Eli. Look at that.
Book of Eli, Fahrenheit 450. So if you get a chance, Fahrenheit 451, the new version has Michael B. Jordan in it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a Michael B. Jordan
a
movie.
black man.
Yeah.
That's my point. And I think I'm hearing an assignment at the same time. I think we should start taking a book. Each of us take a different book and memorize it.
Well, we definitely shouldn't be memorizing our lessons. That's for sure.
Right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sister Patricia.
Yes, sir. Couple things. Where at did you say in the Holy Quran was you was talking about?
What's that?
You just spoke on it. Did you say page 278 or what?
That was Fall of America.
Oh,
Fall of America, chapter 51, page 221.
Oh, I thought you said 278 in the Quran. What did you say about the Quran?
Oh, I had sometimes you just,
verse 8.
Say what?
Chapter 79, verse 7 and 8, where it talks about the heart.
Oh, yes. Chapter 79, verse 7 and 8 talk about on that day hearts will palpitate.
Oh, okay. And also, Dr. Minister Ava, may Allah be pleased with her, she had spoke about that vaccine on the elevated place, and she's made a statement and said, if you go on a 7-day fast just drinking water, it can flush some of that vaccine out of you.
And I think I've seen that in the final call too, in one of the articles that Dr. Ridgely wrote, that because what happens is when you get around the time period of the 3rd day of the fast, if you do a 3-day fast with just water, your body goes into what's called a state of autophagy. And what your body does, it starts to break down stuff that doesn't belong there and recycle it and remove it from the body. And they're saying how following the instructions of the Most High Elijah Muhammad and fasting is one of the ways that you can kind of begin the healing process if you in fact did take the vaccine. The one thing he mentions in that article was the spike proteins.
Yes, sir.
And what happens is through fasting, the body has a way of breaking down these spike proteins and removing them. So we just gotta follow what we already have, basically.
That's right.
All right. So any questions on what we covered in part 1 or part 2 before we go to part 3 of diagnosis?
Yes, sir. I have a question or a follow-up to the question that I asked at the end of the last session.
Okay.
For clarity, I was trying to ask the question about the word problem. And from the standpoint right in line with tonight's opening conversation, in that we've been reared under the devil, and therefore we've had to adopt, or it's been forced upon us to adopt the devil's perspective of things. So when we hear the word problem, we think of difficulty and something traumatic, as opposed to, as it was said in the last class, it's an opportunity. And so I wanted to know how the devil knows that he cannot win. That's a problem for him. And so I asked you, from the standpoint of playing chess, when there's a stalemate, what that does to the mind to know that here's a game or a match or a problem that I cannot fix, solve, or win, what that does to the individual.
What does it do to an individual if they reach a game that's a stalemate?
Basically, yes, sir.
Well, what I would do is, if I'm playing in a tournament, because you record your games, and if it came down to a stalemate, that means that both sides played perfectly, which is very highly unlikely. So what I would do is go back and study that game to see if there was something that I could have done that was better. Because and I'll say it like this: when I study the games that I play, you'll have a good move, you'll have a better move, and then you'll have what's called, what is seen as the best move out of the three. So you have the absolute best move, you have a good move, but you'll have a move that's a little bit better than a good move. 9 times out of 10, it's highly unlikely for any person, even on a master level, to play a 100%, to play at 100%, which means if there's a stalemate, there was mistakes that were made and the other side just didn't catch them.
Okay, and last thing, so what also happens to an individual like the devil, the enemy, that knows that they're in something that they cannot win?
They try to buy time.
That's kind of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, brother.
I was just saying, they know that they cannot win, but then they've kind of superimposed that dynamic on us when it comes to how, at least I'm speaking for myself, possibly, that's how we now incorporate attention to problems from that kind of a mindset that they've adopted, because they know they can't win. Therefore, all of that now factors and hits us. It's kind of where I'm trying to gain some clarity in how to look at the word problem. I have a good example too. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in a lecture talked about how back in chattel slavery, we had to work from can't see morning to can't see night. So we know that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us instruction that when we're feeling bad, work. When we want to do anything, work. When we want to change a mindset, work. So, but that whole notion of work has been, we buck up against it because we had to work from can't see morning to can't see night. That's so right. Now when someone says work, it's not that motivating kind of a disposition. That's kind of the mind that I'm looking at it from and trying to figure it out.
Okay. So if you look at a problem, or if you look at it, or you look at work, what comes to mind is this: it depends on the mindset in which you deal with the problem or you deal with work. If you're dealing with it from the perspective of a tone 4.0, which is enthusiasm, then you're looking at work from the standpoint of what good can I gain from it. So that then on one level, it's not really work. But if you
Okay.
look at work from the lower tone scale, then that work has the ability to become a suppressor. But if you're enthusiastic about it, then that work actually is not a suppressor. That work is actually working in conjunction with your gain.
Yes,
So
sir.
I guess it depends on what's our mindset when we do what we do. When I
Yes, sir.
lose a game, brother, on one level, I'm enthusiastic because I'm like, okay, I want to know how I lost that. What could I do better? So my mindset in losing a game, and I said this to a brother once before playing the game of chess. I said, either way, I'm going to win. But he thought I was speaking from the perspective of arrogance. And I said, no. I said, because if I win, I win. I said, but if I lose, I'm still going to win because I'm going to study why I lost and at least learn something new that I won't make that same mistake again. So I'll still learn something. So I lost the game, but I'll still win because now I've improved, even if it's by just 1 degree, my game has become just a little bit better. And then he understood what I was saying. It's about
Yes, sir.
And I don't want us to get the mistake
Yes,
that, because my mindset is not always like that. But I sometimes I try to look at the positive side of things to kind of keep myself in a certain atmosphere. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's how I would answer that. Does that answer that, Brother Wadu?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah. All right, Sister Angela.
Yes, sir. I hope my braids in the lamb is not too loud in the background, but I just wanted to chime in on Brother Wadu's question because it came up last week. One, I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speak about Satan and being the opponent of Allah. So to clear the language, there will never be a stalemate between Satan and Allah because there's no equal opponent. He said that Allah allowed Satan to delude himself, to make himself feel that he has a chance in winning. And he did it initially with Iblis. Check Iblis out. Iblis said, respite me. At first it sounded like, yeah, I know I messed up, but give me some time because I'm going to prove to you that I was right. They're not worthy of me bowing to, and I'm going to lie in a straight path. I'm going to come to them from the front, from behind, and I'm going to show you a lie that who you chose is not worthy. So that is the goal. So it's a dual mindset of, I guess, the devil and Satan. See, Satan knows his destiny. However, the devils, the dumb ones, as Brother Ishmael pointed out today, think they have a chance. And I think both enjoy the fact that they get to drag some of us down with them because that's the ultimate goal. I'm so jealous of this man or whom you have an affinity for, Allah. I want to taint him. I want to soil him. I don't want him to be of your have your affinity. The lofty place that you put him down. So if I can't tarnish him, at least I can kill him. I can bring him down with me because I know I have an impending doom. So God to God, I'm talking about Allah. Okay, there may be some equality, but Allah to Satan is already in game. Satan knows the dumb devils still think that they have a chance. However, they're doing Satan's bidding by trying to take all of us with them.
Yes, ma'am.
You're right. You're right. That's an aberrated mind.
Absolutely.
How many of us growing up thought we knew better than our parents? We thought we knew better.
I thought I did.
And how many of us have children that tried to play us like that, like we were brand new on the block.
Yes.
You know, they thought this was our first go around. Like they actually thought. And I'm gonna give you a prime example because I just went back on my time track. This is a real funny story. It goes to show this is the mind of a devil. It was back around 1979, 1980. I was down in Pensacola, Florida with my father and my older sister. Now we had did something. So my father, he was getting ready to leave the house. He says, I'm gonna be gone and y'all better not turn on the TV. Don't turn the doggone TV on. So he left. So we're sitting there in the living room watching TV. My father shows back up in the house. He walks in the living room because obviously we saw the car pull up. We turned the TV off. So he walks in the living room. He looks at my sister, my older sister. He looks at me. What do you think he did?
I don't know.
He asked, were you watching TV?
He just put his hand on the TV and felt it was still warm. This was back before we had flat screens, but you know, the TV was still warm. He looked at us and all he did was this. He went, which one of y'all turned the TV on? He caught us. Why? Because we thought we knew better.
Yes.
You know? But Satan is the same way. He thinks he knows better. But his goal is, look, I gotta go. I'm gonna take as many as I can with me.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway. All right. Let us get ready to hopefully finish up this, and then we'll get a little 2-week. Well, God willing, we'll have our class on Wednesday. I don't think too many of us are going to be moving out that early. So Wednesday, and then we'll meet back up in another 2 weeks. But let's see if we can finish up our diagnosis. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is really all one presentation, but we just had to break it up into three parts. So tonight we're still dealing with the chapter titled Diagnosis, but we're gonna touch on some other information that's in the chapter. And the concept of aberration is based on words and word combinations. Now, before we go further, how many of us saw all the Dianetics that Brother Ishmael was dropping today?
I did.
Brother Ishmael was on it. Go ahead.
Did.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
Oh no, I was just answering your question. Yes, sir, I saw it.
Oh yeah, he was all in the Dianetics book today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So word combinations. L. Ron Hubbard says that the number of aberrations possible is the number of combination of words possible in a language as contained in n-grams. If we could, does anyone have their Dianetics book handy?
Yes, sir.
Can you go to the chapter titled Diagnosis?
Yes, sir.
Let's see. That should be what page is that?
221.
Let's see here. Okay. And if you could read go to page 222 and read the second paragraph where it says the number of aberrations. Whoever would like to read that.
This is
Okay.
Patricia.
It says, yeah, it says the number of aberrations possible.
Okay, yes, sir, I'll read it.
Okay.
The number of aberrations possible and the number of combination of words possible in language as contained in engrams. In other words, if a psychotic thinking, if a psychotic thinks he's God, he has an engram which says he is God. If he's worried about poison in his hash, he has an engram which tells him he may get poison in his hash. If he is certain he may be fired from the job any moment, even though he is competitive and well liked, he has an engram which tells him he is about to be fired. And if he thinks he is ugly, he has an engram about being ugly. If he's afraid of snakes or cats, he has an engram which tell him to fear snakes and cats. If he's sure he has to buy anything he sees, despite his income, he has an engram which tell him to buy everything he sees.
Okay.
And
That's good right there. Now, Brother Frank, that wasn't meant for you.
he
Yes,
said,
sir. They were just checking to see if I was asleep. I know.
He said he's afraid of snakes or cats. He has engrams which tell him to fear snakes. I didn't think about that until just now, all the comments you make about snakes. But there's something that there's a reason why I wanted us to read this. Okay, first, it says whatever individual is or thinks in a negative sense, there's an engram with a circuit voicing this suggestion to him or her. So if we have certain voices in our head that are telling us negative things about ourselves, sometimes as we have grown up through life, we thought that voice belonged to us and we believed it.
Mm-hmm.
And that voice actually belongs to a valence that's somewhere back in our time track. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's a particular reason why I wanted us to read that paragraph, because I wanted to make it applicable to something that we already have. First, let's look at aberration as a cycle of action, and then we're going to go into we're going to make it applicable. The first thing, remember, a cycle of action is start, growth, conservation, decay, and then death. And one thing I have learned, if you understand the basic concept of a cycle of action,
Mm-hmm.
and you apply it to everything that you study, at least for me, it makes everything so understandable, because now we're not trying to learn little pieces of information. We're actually learning about cycles of events that take place in a specific, organized manner.
Give an example.
Well, just by looking at the way a fire progresses. Okay, a fire progresses as a cycle of action. There's a start. Someone has to light the fire.
Mm-hmm.
There's a growth period where the fire has to grow. And then there's a period where the fire becomes full blown. It's just ripping through the house. Then there's a time when the fire begins to decay because it's going out. And then there's a time period where the fire stops. So that's just a basic cycle of action. You can take anything you have done today and convert it into a cycle of action. If you cook something, there's a start. You have to mix the ingredients together. You can put the ingredients in the oven. Then you, as you're consuming it, what you just cooked decay means it's dwindling, and then you stop eating. That's a cycle of action. Everything that we study is a cycle of action. Everything has a start, everything has an end, and then there's a process in between. And what I have learned just by applying the teachings of L. Ron Hubbard with regards to the word clearing, the cycle of action. When I apply that to when I'm studying, my grades shoot through the roof. I was blessed to teach a class as a member of what's called the Vulcan Society, which is the International Association of Black Firefighters. And I was blessed to teach a class to the brothers who were preparing for a lieutenant's and a captain's exam. And I shared with them the techniques that I have used to take tests based on the study tech. And the one brother got promoted to and I'm not taking credit for any of it. I'm just saying that I shared with them what I use. And many of the brothers actually passed that exam and actually they got promoted. I'm not going to say as a result of Brother Lukman, but the tech works when you apply it to studying. Okay. I was blessed to score number 1 on the captain's exam. And then I applied the same study tech because what I do now is I try to take the study tech, word clearing, and the cycle of action, and I try to use that to study the problems in the problem book. So I don't study the problem as a problem. I try to look at it as a cycle of action. And for me, it just helps me to retain the information. And by Allah's grace, I had scored number 1 on the captain's test, and then I scored number 1 on the assistant chief's test. Not trying to make anything of myself, I'm just bearing witness that the study tech works. So if you haven't gotten involved in the study tech, I highly recommend you do the tech of study through Scientology.org. It's a free course, doesn't cost anything.
Nothing.
Huh?
It costs nothing if you do the free one. Yes.
Yeah, it's a free course, and I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth it. So now everything I study is a cycle of action. So when you look at an aberration, the start of an aberration is the engram, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in engram, in Dianetics, they also use the word implant.
Yes.
For us, in our lessons, we talk about the needle in the brain, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the needle in the brain, our brain, the reactive mind is like Patmos. And we have these 4 individuals, these 4 devils that we have to bring and present at one time. We could say that our reactive mind is Pelon, and we got 4 individuals there that are keeping us aberrated. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So the engram itself is dormant. Okay. Growth, what starts or activates the engram is the key-in, which is which is considered to be the first lock also, but it's called the key-in. That's the first time the engram is restimulated. Then when you actually get the lock, that's when the engram becomes active now. So this is the cycle. You have an engram, then you get the key-in, then you get the lock. Then after you have the lock, what happens? The reactive mind clicks on now. That engram is clicking on. And then now the person is out of valence. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
My brother Ishmael was all up and down this subject matter today.
Yes, yeah.
He was all in it today. But now out of valence and dramatization, out of valence means in someone else's valence or being somebody else. L. Ron Hubbard says, he does not know that he is because he is himself in a non-self valence. He is somebody else and is denying that he himself exists, which is to say, denying himself as a self. Okay. Now, where do we find that in our supreme wisdom? Anyone? Because this is in our lessons.
Ask the question again, please.
I was saying that he does not know that he is because he is himself in a non-self valence.
Right. Lessons C1.
Yes, lesson number.
C1, you saw it. My uncle cannot talk his own language.
Language.
He does not know that he is my uncle. So now you have to ask yourself, well, why did he use the word uncle? So we're talking about Master Fard Muhammad is talking about the black man of America as the brother of his father.
Yes.
So now what does that say about us?
That we're his cousins.
That puts us in a certain level.
Yes, sir.
But now let's take that concept and go back at the definition that L. Ron Hubbard gives. He does not know that he is because he himself is in a non-self valence. Isn't that one reason why we got to give up the enemy's name?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
When you look at Revelations 13, it talks about here the number of the beast, it is the number of a man, 603 correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Then you go to Revelation 14, and it talks about a group of individuals that are on another shore with the Lamb, and they have his father's name in their foreheads.
Hmm.
Now, me personally, it's just my opinion. I look at that Lamb on another shore as the minister because we don't wear his name, but we have his father's name, which is Muhammad, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
And it said that they're singing a new song. And then it says here, he is somebody else and is denying that he himself exists. Don't we deny that we're God?
That's right. Yes, sir.
We still haven't accepted the fact, and I'm including myself because I'm still trying to accept that. We have not accepted the fact that we are God.
Hmm.
Did I lose anyone on that one?
No, sir.
Okay. Now that paragraph that we read, I wanted to take the same concept, but I wanted to apply it to self-improvement. Go ahead, Sister Shayla.
When you were speaking on the brothers, the Vulcan brothers, and you facilitating the tech to them, what was going through my mind is like, we still does not, because you deflected. You said, I'm not saying anything of myself. I said, okay, Brother Luke, in a second, he just denied his godship right then and there. And not like I didn't observe that as a criticism, but I said, this is what we do. You facilitated something. So therefore, credit belongs to Allah that use you.
Mm-hmm.
But there are many ways to deny the godship in ourselves. And when we don't acknowledge the good that comes from us, that enhance and move the needles for others, we're denying God. And I asked myself, how many of these do you do, Sister Shayla? How many of these does everyone on this call do? And then we asked, well, no, let me strike that. Then I asked myself, is God with me? Oh, Master Farad Muhammad, have you left me? I'm like, no, he has not left you. Is denial of the good of ourselves is denial of Master Farad Muhammad. Therefore, we don't know that we are his uncle or his aunt at this point. I'm not sure how that would apply in modern times. I don't want to lose anyone, but my uncle does not know that he's my uncle. So how do you see that, Brother Luqman? How do you see us not accepting we're God and denying ourselves the little light that comes through us? We deny it quickly.
I'll say it like this, Sister Shayla. I always will, if I make a statement like that, I preface it like that because I don't want Brother Luqman to be seen as someone who's arrogant. And I think sometimes I do that for my own sake. I don't want anyone to see Brother Luqman as thinking more of himself than he does. At the very end at the very end of the presentation, ask me that same question, and then I'll share something with the believers as to why I try to be very, very careful with what I say and how I say it. Just remind me at the very end, and then maybe what you'll understand. I'd never try to make myself more than what I am. I try to always keep a lie out front. And I think we all do. And I think we all have to perhaps grow to a certain extent. We have to understand our place, because if we're going to be made a part of that circle with the other gods, there's a certain mindset we have to have, but at the same time, we got to always remember that there's a God above all of us.
Can I share something?
I always strive to be mindful of that.
Can I share something in regards to this?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Brother Salon.
You know, I think what it is having humility allow us to to do that, not so that we won't be in the feel of being arrogant or thinking as if we are that. I'm part of that, so that we won't put that label on us that we are gods. You follow what I'm saying? You hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, because the reason why I say that, because in the Holy Quran, Allah let us know his humility when he says in Surah 6, verse 12, I'm paraphrasing, he's most merciful. He had bestowed mercy on himself. That's the humility aspect of God. So we never want to say we are God, because we don't want to feel like we're arrogant. But it's always to have that good humility side of us, so that we can recognize there's a greater force than us that's working in us. That's why we don't take the praise of God.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody says, oh, man, I like what you did, we say, oh, praise is due to Allah. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So Allah says in Surah 23, you know, he tells us the nature of a believer, one who is humble. So we take that aspect of, you know, of not saying things that makes us feel that we are all that, but that's why we take the humility approach. You understand?
Yeah. For the most part, I do it for myself, so I don't become like a big-headed scientist. Let's just put it that way.
I accept that. I accept that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
May I?
Go ahead, Sis Angela, you got the floor.
Oh, this is just so loud. You know, I'm hearing it's okay. I think I have to go back to Iblis Jesus in the divine instruction, and kind of remind us in supreme wisdom, we are qualifying ourselves for positions of waiting for us. So we all have an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
When we hear the Honorable Minister Farrakhan speak, we hear him speak about his assignment now. Granted, he is a star with no equal.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not to even try to balance ourselves to him. He has his own assignment. However, we being in Allah, we were raised to complete our assignment also. So I understand your humility, not wanting to make the mistake that Bliss made, to, you know, believe in who he was. Because that what created Satan, the devil, right? That imbalance. And then we have to take the coloring of Jesus. He said, why callest thou me good? All good comes from the Father. So that's the standard. There's nothing that we can come across good that we can take credit for. We thank Allah for utilizing us for his glory, because that's what we do. And there's nothing about us. Our journey and our goal is oneness, crystallization in Allah. Angela, I look forward for her to die daily so I can be the Allah called me into this to existence to be, and that's oneness with him.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. All right. All right, let's keep it moving. That paragraph that we read, where it says, if he's worried about poison in his hash, he has an engram. If he certain he may be fired, it might be from an engram. So then the thought came to my mind that if we're given the seven impediments, pride, envy, greed, lust, fear, anger, and vanity, then I had posed the question, what if? So now, can an individual that is proud possess an engram that contains the word combinations that produce pride? So now we're using the tech as a tool to go a little deeper into the self-improvement study guide.
All right.
Okay. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says in Building the Will, he says the next terrible distortion, or that which distorts the will, is pride. Pride is a high or inordinate opinion of one's own dignity, importance, merit, or superiority, whether this is cherished in the mind or expressed openly by our veering or conduct makes no difference. Okay. So let's look at that. So pride, he says, there is something terrible that distorts the will. So now if you look at this as far as start, change, stop, or for the past couple of weeks, we've been dealing with circuits, inputs and outputs. So now if you look at the fact that the input, based on what the minister said, he used the word distortion, correct? Okay. So what is distorting our mind? In Dianetics terminology, we call that a demon circuit or an implant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So now the equation is you and I. Each one of us is an equation, and there's no two equations that are the same, correct?
Okay.
Okay. Each one of us is an equation, and I believe the purpose of our life is we have to solve our equation.
That's right.
Okay. So when you look at the input and you have the equation, your input is going to produce an output. So now using the tech, I'm looking at what the minister says, that this distortion in our mind, is it possible there's something in our mind that's producing the pride? Have you ever seen someone who's very proud or boastful?
Yes.
Now the question is, if that's an impediment, then it would make sense to me that there's an engram connected that's making that person proud or boastful.
Okay.
Okay. Distortion, by definition, means the act of twisting or altering something out of its true, natural, or original state. So distortion and grafting is the same thing. Distortion and aberrated is the same thing, changing something from original. So distortion follows the same definition as what is devil. A grafted man which is made weak or wicked, or any grafted live germ from original is devil. Well, distortion is synonymous, is it not?
That's right.
So distortion is synonymous with grafting. It's a falsified reproduction of an audio or video signal. Well, isn't a falsified reproduction of an audio or video signal, isn't that the same as when you have the incorrect visio-perceptic or incorrect acoustic perceptic?
Yes. Like a frequency, a distorted frequency.
A distorted frequency. So now if you look at it from the perspective of the Holy Quran, Allah says in Surah number 2, Allah has sealed their hearts and their hearing, and there's a covering on their eyes. So now here we have the rule of interpretation is some verses are allegorical and some are decisive, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so what if this is one of those allegorical statements in the Holy Quran? I'm a firm believer. When you look at the fact that Allah says in the Holy Quran that he's given us a book explaining all things, and he's given us a book whose ayats give us many connections, then I'm a firm believer that those allegorical ayats in the Holy Quran are not just allegorical from a spiritual perspective. Those allegorical verses invite us into another level of the secrets and the mathematics and science of the universe. There's something in these ayats that unlocks the universe to us. But I believe that the ayats are given to us in a way, and it goes back to closing the gap, where it says that Master Fra Muhammad used to teach the believers using pictures, correct?
That's right.
And it says the picture is not the truth, but the more you reach into the picture, the more truth you can withdraw from that picture, correct?
That's right.
So now we can take this ayat. Allah has sealed our hearts in the hearing, and there's a covering on the eyes. Now, if we take it literally, we would think that Allah is flying around someplace, closing people's eyes and putting stoppers in their ears, and they can't see and they can't hear. We take it literally. Then that's no different than a Christian believing that Jesus walked on water and turned water to wine.
Mm-hmm.
I had a Jehovah's Witness come to my door yesterday. And I said, what the heck, I'll talk with him. We started going into the dialogue about the Bible, and you believe that forever, live forever, and this, that, and the other. And we got into the story about the birth of Jesus and his lineage. And then we started going through the Bible and, sharing with him, the Bible says, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. Doesn't the Bible say that Jesus was of the seed of David? He said, yes. I said, the seed of a man is his sperm and his genetic line, correct? He said, yes. I said, and a man had to be present because a man can't come into existence without an X and Y chromosome, correct? Where did the other chromosome come from? It had to come through Joseph. No, see, God can do whatever he wants. God doesn't do outside of his law that he produces.
Yeah, there's no altering in his creation.
Say again?
There's no altering in Allah's creation.
Right. So eventually, by the end of the conversation, he shook my hand and he left. There's wisdom in these allegories that unlocks the universe. What the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has given us and is giving us through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, you can't defeat this truth. You can just walk away. That's all you can do. But I want to look at this ayat and make it applicable to the text. Because when you look at sealing of the hearts, in Arabic, the Arabic is Katam Allahu ala kulli bihim. The word katama means to seal off or make inaccessible. Kulubahim means heart, mind, spirit, or the best part. So when you take those two things and put them together, you're talking about the mind becomes inaccessible. In Dianetic language, that's called an occluded case, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now when you have an occluded case, one thing that L. Ron Hubbard says in Dianetics, when you have an occluded case, don't you have what's called the visio shutoff?
Mm.
Don't you have acoustical shutoff? Have you ever tried to audit someone and they couldn't pick up any perceptics?
Yes.
Okay. So sealing of the heart and the hearing and the covering on the eyes, that could be allegorical. I'm just saying it's a possibility. It could be allegorical to what takes place when a person is extremely aberrated. Because some of our brothers and sisters are so aberrated, you can't really tell them anything. They don't want to hear it.
That's right.
And the word occluded means the memory is not available for recall. Is all this making sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you go deeper into what's called the occluded case, it means to be fixed in the effort of a heavy facsimile. Do we all know what a heavy facsimile is?
Make it known.
A heavy facsimile is an engram that has a lot of charge on it. Brother Salam, remember when we went auditing and you took me back to my basic?
Yeah, you went into the womb.
You remember how much I cried when that happened?
Yes, I did.
There was a lot of charge on that. That was a heavy facsimile.
Yes.
A heavy facsimile is an engram that has a lot of emotion on it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of emotion. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. I used to think that I was occluded because I was confusing it with just regular processing, having all the precepts and things like that in perceptions and just processing, processing myself or just remembering things on a general. But one of the sisters reminded me the other day that occlusion, that takes place in reverie, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's when you find out someone is occluded in reverie, right?
Correct.
Right. So that doesn't happen with me. When I experienced being in reverie, I was able to, have perceptions and things like that, as if I was there. So I said, so thank you. So I'm not occluded, so I tend to, well, that's the second time I recognized it, that I put something on myself that did not belong there.
Mhm.
So when she told me that, see, truth is a is a definite straight wire.
Mhm.
Boy, because when that truth comes to you, it knock out all that falsehood, even about ourselves. So I no longer say, because Sister Angela, she tried to tell me one time, because I was telling her I'm occluded, and she tried to explain to me what that is. And I wasn't trying to hear it, because I just knew I was occluded. So
Uh-huh.
okay, Sister Angela, I'm cool now.
Yes.
Cool as a fan, all praises due to Allah.
So she just has to clear up that misunderstood, correct?
Well, the sister I talked to the other day, she cleared it up. Sister Angela tried to, but I wasn't trying to hear it, because I just knew I was right. I was occluded because of my perception of what occlusion is, from what I read and what I understood. I wasn't understanding properly. So a sister the other day told me that occlusion takes place in reverie. That's when you find out someone is occluded in reverie, and I said, oh, okay, well, that's not me then,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because remember, when we do the auditing, the processing, L. Ron Hubbard talks about a wide open case, and then he talks about the occluded case. And then with the occluded case is when you got to really get into the demon circuits, you got to deal with the valences and repeater technique and time shifts and all those things, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's like trying to take a plunger and get in that sink. You got a lot of stuff that's there, and you got to apply a plunger to that brain, basically.
Yeah, because I remember when a sister was auditing me, this was like, maybe 2012, something like that, 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And she just kept going over, I was in reverie, and she kept going over the same thing, because I was really feeling what was going on. It was like I was right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so she kept going over the same thing. And so I realized through my own studies, she did that to see if there was dub in, if I was imagining this,
Mm-hmm.
but everything was the same. Each and every time she asked me, it was always the same answer, same reaction, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really there. Yeah. So I had to reflect on the times when I was in reverie, that it was not that I am not occluded. I do have perceptions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you for that info. Sister Angela.
Yes, sir. And we have to be aware. Some of us, I don't know, I know I've experienced. Does anybody was sleeping and dream that you're sleeping dreaming?
You
mean wake up and then you're still in a dream?
No, sir. I'm thinking, let's say you go to bed and you have a dream. In that dream, you fall asleep and have another dream.
Yes.
Agreement.
right?
Absolutely.
So this is what happens when engrams are layered on top of each other. We can be in one engram and open up a whole nother engram. So sometimes when we're in something and it sounds like we're making something up, we have merged the two engrams together. So it's engram on engram. Not because we remember when we had that seminar, what a person says, even if it feels made up, it belongs somewhere. We just have to find out where it belongs. So remember the part when the man was recalling that he got stabbed with the bayonet and he was a World War II hero.
Mhm.
And it could have simply been that he was watching that as a child on a movie when something happened to him. But he took on the valence of the person that was in the movie. So it belongs somewhere. It's not made up. That's why this listening technique is very key. We just have to see if we are in engram on engram. So that's like a dream within a dream.
Now you know what else L. Ron Hubbard said about incidents like that?
Wow.
If you get further, as you get further in the tech, he starts to say that one of the reasons why when you just do like book one auditing, like some people want to learn the other information, and I highly recommend that everyone complete, just go in order. Don't try to jump to advanced stuff without knowing the book one, because the book one really lays the foundation. And later on in the tech, he says that one of the reasons why it would take using book one technique takes so long, what they were coming across was that what was keeping some people aberrated were engrams that were not received in this lifetime. And I'm just going to leave that there. I'm not going any further. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely makes sense.
But now I will add this piece to it. And we've heard this before. The Most High Elijah Muhammad teaches us in Message to the Black Man, the first God that created himself is no longer present, but his person exists in his people today, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then what we have to do, ask ourselves the question is, how did the person of the first God 76 trillion years ago get from that point to this point today? And that's just something for us to think about.
I will share this.
Go ahead, Brother Salam.
That Allah says in Surah 19, verse 9, that he created us before. It gives the indication that there was a different creation of us prior to this creation. Allah says in Surah 19, verse 9, he created us before. Mother Tanetta Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with her, she goes into aspects of us coming from a different, what word can I use? I can't find the word that she was saying. I forgot what she was saying. But it's as if we was in another dimension. So could we have engrams going back to that other dimension? Would you think that would be possible?
I'm not going to touch that, but I will say this. When you look at the fact that our lessons say the root of civilization is in Arabia at the holy city of Mecca, which means where wisdom and knowledge of the original man first started when the planet was found. We can stop right there.
Good point.
We can stop right there, because that would imply that we existed before we came here. Now, I've heard Mother Tanetta teach on that briefly, but without remembering everything that she said, I'm not going to go into it. I will try to find the link and send the link out, but I'm a firm believer. And Brother Salam, I remember we had this conversation about 20 years ago. Remember we left Fishkill? We had this conversation.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm a firm believer that there's ayats in the Holy Quran in my mind that confirm this, that there's something that exists after this.
You know, the Most Honorable Muhammad said back in 1972, he said, 20 to 30 years from now, some of my followers will be able to travel in the future as well as in the past. And he left it like that.
So those subjects I'll leave for the minister. But I do read a lot of what Mother Taineta Muhammad speaks about those concepts.
Yes.
And I guess when you start having those spiritual experiences, you realize that, and L. Ron Hubbard talks a lot about this, the biggest, they call it fact one or facsimile one. And that is the thought that we're limited to just one lifetime.
Yes.
But I'll just throw this out here. If there's only one lifetime, and this is the conversation that Brother Salam and I had like 20 years ago, it was a comment he made within one of the prisons. And I said, brother, I had a question about it because I was kind of still young with regards to that level of the teachings. And Brother Salam said, brother, if there's nothing after this lifetime, there's no need to have religion. What's the purpose of why live a righteous life if there ain't nothing after this? Just live life and enjoy and do what you ever want to do.
Yes, sir.
He says, however, if there's something after this, then we have to live this life. I'm paraphrasing that. We have to live this life in the best manner. And in Allah says in the Holy Quran like this, he says, those that want the things of this world, we will give them the things of this world, but of the hereafter, they get nothing.
That's right.
And those that seek the good of the hereafter, we will reward them here and there. I'm paraphrasing. You'll get a double reward. So to me, that means our best investment would be to live this life as best as we can.
That's right.
And then if there's something after this, if by Allah's grace, then at least we would have earned something outside of this. But I'm a firm believer, and forgive me for saying this, but the way things are right now in this country, if this is all I got, I don't want this. No, I don't want this. I'm tired of this. There's got to be something greater than this. Go ahead, Sister Ann. I'm just rambling right now.
No, not at all. It's not a ramble. I think, I've witnessed a video of the two seas. One is sweet and one is bitter, and this invisible barrier between the two. Is one thing to read it in the Holy Quran, and whoever put the video up there were reading that part, but you can actually see it's a different color, and no matter how much they tried to mix the two, that barrier would not allow these two waters to mix. And I say that as you were talking because I believe that the heavens and earth were created in righteousness, and that this form of mankind is the birth of death. I don't believe in death. I believe in the ever living spiritual. So I believe that this spiritual world is side by side with this physical world, and there's an invisible barrier that once we change this conduit, it continues. I don't think it ever stops. I think that the conduit stops, but this thing with death, we have to really alter our perception. The original, the Most High Elijah Muhammad said, you can kill everybody on the planet, and the black man will rise again. We do not die.
That's right.
We do not die. So death was not meant for us. This beast was given 6,000 years to live on our planet. The earth is, she's getting rid of her burden as we speak. This universe was never meant for unrighteous. So the point of being righteous is the point to exist. The hereafter is now. Sister Ava, may Allah be pleased with his star. She said for the believers, the hereafter is now.
Yes.
Now, after we got to go to war with them for devils within. And after we go to war with them, we peace. We should be in a peaceful state of existence. And that's here after the Satan was exorcised out of self.
Thank you for that. All right, let's see if we can speed this up so we can in time to make the next meeting. With the occluded case complains of illness.
Hmm.
And when I saw that, I told myself, I got to stop talking about being old. I always talk about old age and being old, and I gotta change my language, at least for myself. I know I gotta stop doing that because I start to believe it. The occluded case is simply a balled up track. Okay. And he also described it as a heavily ridged case. So there's a lot of things that are blocking in an occluded case. Now let's look at envy. We're taking the information from the tech, but we're making it applicable to the self-improvement study guides. So now he says there's something terrible that distorts the will. Okay, these are the words of the minister. We have an input, that's the distortion. You and I are the equation.
Mhm.
Now here the output is envy. Do we have an envy circuit?
Mm.
Envy is a feeling of discontent, usually ill will, at seeing someone else's superiority, advantage, or success. So now L. Ron Hubbard says whenever you have a circuit, that circuit is connected to an engram. So now based on what we read, now we're applying it to the study guides. If I'm envious of someone, wouldn't that envy have to originate in a circuit that's in my mind that's causing me to be envious?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's the.
So now if there's a circuit in my mind causing me to be envious, is it possible that I'm not really envious, but I'm manifesting a circuit from an engram?
Mm. Yes, sir.
Just so now if we're suffering from this impediment, then it's quite possible, we could start straight wiring based on those 7 impediments and get to the root of pride, envy, greed, lust, fear, anger, and vanity. So whatever, in those 7 impediments might lie our 4 devils. And if we can start doing straight wire with regards to the 7 impediments, we might find a change or transformation as a twinkling of an eye. Does that make any sense?
That makes great sense, Brother Lucas. Great sense.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're envious, is it possible now? Because if I take the word fear, if I use English lesson C1 as an equation, I take the word fear out. And if I say, why is he envious now as a grown man? Because he was taught to be envious when he was a child.
That's a good point.
Okay. The question is, what type of an event would have to take place to make someone envious as a child?
Mm.
Was there any time in our time track when one of our brothers or sisters was put out front for doing something and we felt like we should have got the credit for it?
Yes.
Could that be the root of the envy? Is it possible that we still carry envy now as an adult? Were we taught to be envious as a child? Is there an envious circuit that's connected to an envious engram?
I believe so.
Can I share? It's
Yes,
good
sir. Brother Lukman,
Go ahead, Sister Tina, and then we'll go to Brother Salam.
Willie Lynch. You know,
Yes.
we were taught all of that: envy, fear, all the differences, and then you were just talking earlier about how past lives, we can have engrams from that. So the engrams carry on in DNA. They're cellular, right? Engrams on a cellular level.
That's what scientists are saying.
Mm-hmm. That's what's in Dianetics book too. Yeah. So Willie Lynch, when you was talking, that made me think of Willie Lynch all the way.
Praise be to Allah.
Thank
you, Sister Tina. Go ahead, Brother Salam.
Also, the parents can start that process of envy by favoring one child more so than the other children. That can happen too. Envy can come out of that out of the family.
Yes,
The
sir.
mother favored one child more than she favored other children. They see that, and envy come into play.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens between the siblings?
Yes.
Now they start to fight and kill one another.
Mm-hmm. So that sounds like a key in right there.
Yes.
When parent goes to favor one child or another, the envy is dormant from the Willie Lynch syndrome, and then it's keyed in. There it goes. Mm.
Yeah, basically. Yes, ma'am. Now we're not going to go through all 7 impediments. Well, I think we're going to go through greed and one other one, but let's look at greed. So what is greed? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gives us greed is the accepted, inordinate, or rapacious desire for wealth, power, food, or drink. So here we go. We have the input. We have the distortion. We have an implant, or we have a circuit. The equation is the will, which represents the individual. The output is greed. Now, the question is, if we are greedy, if we have a desire for wealth, power, food, or drink, then there has to be a voice in our head that's guiding us to acquire the wealth, power, or the food or drink, correct? If it's inordinate, that is. Is that circuit connected to a greed engram?
Could be.
You know, for some of us, one of the reasons why we might have a problem with on a dietary level, it could be because, and I'm using myself as an example because I'm trying to go back on my time track and I'm trying to figure some things out in my own personal life. You know, is our connection to food, is that somehow connected to a past experience where food was something that someone used to show love or appreciation? And are there certain foods that we have, you know, it's different if we just had like sweets, just ate sweets altogether. But for some of us, you know, there's certain specific things we always go for.
Mm.
What is it about those specific things and how are they connected to the past? You know, Brother Lukman eats this as an adult, but he was taught to eat this when he was a child. So what is it about what I do now with regards to my diet that's connected to my childhood? Okay, do we have a, so when we think we desire something in an inordinate manner, could this be an engramic circuit being that's voicing the suggestion? Go ahead, Sister Shayla.
I had a question. Could the greed for food be caused by an engrammate deprivation of food at certain point on the track?
It could be. It could be. It could be.
You know, because they use food as a medium of control for the slaves. So I'm wondering how that played out engrammically
It could
in
be.
ourselves.
So somewhere on my time track, maybe in a previous lifetime, Massa kept some food from me.
Probably true.
You know, I haven't traveled back that far yet, but I am trying to get a fast in before we get to Savior's Day, though. Go ahead, Sister Angela.
Yes, sir. You know, I was paying attention to older movies and even some of the Kodaks or the pictures that were taken during slavery. And I started finding what I call a phenomenon, because at one point you could never see an overweight slave.
Mm-hmm.
They were very
lean, very lean.
But then I started finding overweight women in particular.
Wow.
They usually are the dressmakers, the cooks, and stuff like that. So I can trace
That mindset all the way down to my grandmother. Hand it to my mother, then hand it to me. So, you know, this is the shared engrams, or, you know, the inherent engrams that we don't even know why we eat when we eat, or just like we have figured out or found out that cause him to eat the wrong foods, is why some people believe that, oh, cancer is in my family. No, that food that caused cancer is in your family. Diabetes run in my family. No, that food that caused diabetes,
that's right,
run your family. And this is the things, the habits that are, see, the white man is very cognizant of habit and how we can pass it down from generation to generation. So it's not just the collard greens, because, you know, why they're fed Muslims, why are we overweight when we don't eat collard greens and cornbread and them yams and things of that nature. Though we moved away from certain foods, we still kept some of the mentality that we find some form of comfort, because what did a slave have? But I mean, if we being treated like we're not human, being worked all the time, the only pleasure we did have is when we got something to eat. So this whole thing that we turn to food, I think is conditioned. And now we self-perpetuated like Willie Lynch.
That's a good point. Good point.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
In the books that I'm currently studying right now, what's being put out in the medical field is this. Dr. Gabor Mate's book, The Myth of Normal, and Dr. Candace Pert, The Molecules of Emotion. Both these books are in agreement on many levels. But one thing they're saying is that certain emotions, and the term that Dr. Candace Pert uses, it's psychoimmunoendocrinology. She connects the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the immune system. And she says that there are certain emotions, especially if we hold on to anger or we're fearful,
Right.
these emotions actually translate into chemistry. And the chemistry is the body holds on to it. And not only does the body hold on to these negative emotions, but the point of injury, the point of the body that was injured, is the area where the emotion is held. Now, I'll give this one example. There are instances where individuals may have fibroids, and it's not a coincidence that these fibroids have something in connection with the womb, and then there may be a connection with some traumatic experience in the past. Same situation for men. We have certain illnesses as men that are connected to traumatic experiences from our childhood. And these injuries are connected to the site of where the injury took place. That's where it's like the body is pinpointing the location by producing an injury, a sickness, or disease at that location. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And that's part of where the research is going right now. That cancer specifically, they're saying that it's connected to anger. Anger that's internalized. There's another book. I'm trying to think what the name of that book is. One of the quotes from the book is that when you don't cry externally, your organs will cry internally. And when you deal with certain diseases, and this is something I'm trying to study right now to get more concrete information, that when you deal with specific type of diseases, you have some diseases that deal specifically with the glands. You have some diseases that deal specifically with like joints, like the arthritis. They deal with the depository illnesses. Brother Wadu, help me out there. You got some diseases that are depository. You got some that are centered around the glands. You with me, Brother Wadu? Brother Dr. Salam? Anyway, that's what the research is.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, but have you heard anything like that in your studies, brother?
I'm learning from you.
Say what?
I'm learning from you tonight.
Okay. I got these 2 books I'm trying to finish up before I went and bought another book. So I've got all these books I'm trying to read, but this book by Dr. Candace Pert has it's amazing how she's translating emotions to specific molecules and how these molecules it's just like our emotions are being translated into chemistry and the chemistry is being translated into disease. So
I
just
can kind of think of that in the sense of the disease that has been questioned in some medical realms called fibromyalgia.
Okay.
In that, because it's such a widespread event in a person's body, that I can see a connection between the emotions, the chemical, and then the manifestation of a disease called fibromyalgia, because it's so widespread.
Dr. Gabor Mate has gone as far as to tie. He explains why there's certain diseases that are rampant in the Black community. He says that's why you have such high cases of asthma with Black women. He says that's tied to racism. So, okay, fear. Again, there's something terrible that distorts the will. Now that quote is coming from Building the Will, part 1. We have the input. You and I are an equation, and then there's fear. So now, is there a fear circuit? Is there a demon circuit that's connected to fear? So now, Minister Farrakhan says that, did you know that fear is what the enemy of Allah, God, uses to restrict the power of your own will? What are you afraid of? Once someone can make you afraid, they restrict the power of your being to express itself. So now we're about to do something, and then we stop, we withhold, we decide not to do it. That withhold, doesn't that have to come from a thought that comes to mind? Would that be a circuit telling us what not to do? And if there's a circuit, L. Ron Hubbard saying that there has to be an engram that's connected to that circuit, because all of us in this room in the past 30, 60 to 90 days have had great ideas that we're still procrastinating on manifesting. I raise both of my hands because I'm one.
Yes, sir. Say that again.
Okay. So what's holding us back? Is there a circuit that's holding us back? And this is why we do, for those that have, that went through the course, we do what's called an inventory before we do an auditing session. What's the purpose of the inventory? What you're doing is you're collecting all of the possible inputs that have produced all the possible outputs. So when you're auditing, what you're doing is you're actually figuring out equations to find out which person produced what circuit. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Summary. Each one of us is an equation that we must solve. And we shouldn't worry about no one else's equation unless we're assisting them. Everyone has the responsibility of figuring out their own equation. We have to understand the relationship between our inputs, which is our implants, our demon circuits, these needles in our brains, and our outputs, which is our behaviors, our valences, and our dramatizations. We have to understand those two things in order to gain a thorough knowledge of ourselves. So that's how we got to work on ourselves. We got to know, we have to be aware of our own buttons, and we got to know why those buttons exist. And then we got to find a way to take the charge off those buttons. I know even to this day, and I'm just again to use myself as an example. If you say certain things to me, but you say it in a certain way, I'm not clear yet. I'm not clear yet. You'll get cussed out. Okay. But Allah says in the Holy Quran, hurtful speech is allowed for one who's been wrong. So if you wrong me, I'm sitting on that ayat from the Holy Quran. You'll get cussed out.
I quote that one often, beloved. Yes, sir.
Say what?
I'm just appreciating you, beloved, because I quote that same one. Honestly, though, too, because I just mean that honestly. Thank you, beloved.
Yes, sir. Brother Luke might have a real bad temper. And I don't know if it's just that was passed down of the genetic line, because I come from a whole family of hell raisers. Maybe that's what it is. And I'm the sum total of all the hell raisers in my genetic line. So I got all the charge from all the chains. I don't know, but go ahead, Sister Shayla.
Brother Luke, man, stop evaluating yourself. That's a no. Sometime the person has not done us wrong. Remember, it's the reactive mind that is responding.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's
not
right.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're correct, but don't analyze yourself.
So then I can cuss someone out, and I ain't got to worry about it because it wasn't me.
No, you're responsible. You know too much to do that. We should do that. We know enough to know, like, no.
You got echo. All right, go ahead, Brother Wadu.
Did I roll lower my hand? Lower hand. Okay.
Yes, sir. In your last comment, I was reading today in book 1. It's actually the first book, but book 2, chapter 3, the cell and the organism.
Mm-hmm.
And it said that this is push button in its precision. If one knew another's main re-stimulators, whether they were words, voice tones, music, whatever they are, then that person, well, before that, it says that if they knew their re-stimulators, another person's re-stimulators, which are filed in the reactive mind bank as part of engrams, then the other person could turn another's analytical power almost completely off, actually render him or her unconscious. And so it made me think about how the world that we live in some ways, it seems to probe for those triggers and become our re-stimulators, because he said voice tones. So all of us, I would imagine, have heard condescending voice tone. So when someone who may be a high school person across a cash register talks to me as a grown person in a condescending way, as though they know what I don't know, and they are only 15 or 16 years old, that's a re-stimulation of something inside of me. I think about the times when, before I had knowledge of self, where I could see someone else smoke a cigarette or drink some beer. Back in my day, it was 40-ounce beers. So that when I was trying to stop and come into a better way of life, just to see somebody else do it was almost like an invitation to say, come back and do this with me. And I don't know if I'm making sense on all of it, but that's what came to mind when I was listening to you about the re-stimulation, that someone else can actually kind of take charge of that if they know what those triggers are inside of you.
Yes, sir. Now, I'm glad you said that. That makes perfect sense. Who else would know what buttons are in you than those that are programming the buttons, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, this is the thought that comes to my, I spoke about this earlier, I think today or yesterday, but you just said it and it brought it back to memory. I was watching the Dianetic videos, the video that comes and it basically gives you a quick rundown of all the chapters. And one thing that they stated was that engrams are a part of unconsciousness, sickness, under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or extremely fatigued. Okay.
I can see that.
Now, what buttons are being programmed if we fall asleep in front of the TV?
Right.
How many of us have fallen asleep in front of the TV and then our dream was actually a part of the show that we were watching?
Yes, sir. I bear witness.
Now, that being the case, how many implants did we receive? Just something to think about. Just something to think about. Okay. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. So the technology that's supposed to be of Dianetics works in harmony with the supreme wisdom, which is the whole reason why we're combining the text together. We're using the tech to go deeper into our teachings, because our teaching, now the correction is, the thought is the teaching a safe full of treasure, or is the self a safe full of treasure, or is both the case? I believe that there's the wisdom that we have been given is something to be used to open up our scrolls. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The supreme wisdom takes our mind to a different frequency, which unlocks the wisdom that's in us as well. I'm a firm believer. When you look at the supreme wisdom lessons, look at the effect that it had on the time that the messenger studied. Look at the effect it had on Malcolm. Look at the effect it had on Dr. Khalid. Look at all those greats, Mother Tynetta, Sister Ava. You know, when you look at all the greats, Dr. Wesley, Brother Nuri, you know, but now each individual, when they teach, they all have their particular style of presentation, correct?
Yes, sir.
They all sound different, but you can tell they all drink from the same well.
Right.
That's right.
I'm a firm believer that the teachings are designed to unlock something that Allah has implanted in us, to allow us to come face to face with who we are.
Yes, sir.
That's just my opinion. Last but not least, I came across this word synergism. And synergism means the interaction of or cooperation of two or more organizations, substances, or other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. Now, I remember when I was as a paramedic, we came across someone who was a diabetic. There's two things we definitely would give them. We would give them high dose glucose, but we'd also give them something called thiamine. And the thiamine was given because, you know, you're giving them the sugar. The thiamine allows the sugar to get into the cells quicker. Is that correct, Dr. Wadud?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay. So you have one drug that's used to get the other drug in quicker, correct? That's why we have the tech and the wisdom. It doesn't mean that we're choosing one over the other. And I'll end it on this note. It reminded me, and this is going to be the subject of another topic in the future, God willing, and it was with regards to constipation based on the foods that we eat. but I was looking at it from a mental level. That some of us are constipated mentally because we've been eating the wrong food mentally. And the Dianetics comes like a mental laxative to remove the blockages, to allow the wisdom to get through. Does that make sense? Now that's a demo kit.
Can't wait.
So the teachings work synergistically. Here's our homework assignment. Read the Religion of Islam, pages 115 to 127. This is going to be a self-study. Read each of the attributes and relate each of the attributes to those observed in the character of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Now, if you go through the 99 attributes, you'll see the character of the minister. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is he, with regards to us here, is he considered the best knower amongst us? Not overall, but amongst us.
Yes.
Yes.
Does he have the characteristic of patience?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Does he have the characteristics of beneficence?
Right.
He has the characteristics of mercy.
Yes.
Is he a provider?
Yes.
Okay. So he's manifesting the characteristics of Allah. So we see Allah in the form of a man.
Yes.
Okay. Now, same thing, but related to ourselves. Look at each of these attributes, and then each one of us ask ourselves the question, are we patient? And if we're not, when is it that we're not patient, and why are we not patient?
Good point.
And then identify what must be done to close the gap. So it's like we're going to do a straight wire on ourselves, but we're using the 99 attributes. And of course, we don't have the button yet of being the patient, the merciful, the beneficent, the master of the day of judgment. But can we be a master of the day of judgment? Meaning, can I master today? Can I have mastery over my judgment for today?
Excellent.
If I'm blessed to wake up tomorrow, can I make the right judgments tomorrow? Can I be a master of the day of judgment tomorrow? Can I be patient tomorrow? Can I be merciful? And see, I'm a firm believer that when Allah taught Adam all the names, and then Adam had control over the forces of nature, I don't think that Adam just memorized the names.
No.
I think Adam learned how to manifest those characters and those characteristics and qualities within himself, and based on that, being able to manifest Allah in all those different facets and from each dimension allowed him to gain mastery over himself. And once you gain mastery of the universe here, this universe is connected to that universe out there, correct?
Excellent.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
All right, questions, comments before we wrap it up? Thoughts? If not, let me go ahead. I'm going to end this part of the meeting, and then I'll share with you just something that was based on what Sister Shayla had asked. I'll share why I do what I do the way I do it. Let me go ahead and end. Okay, let me end this.